Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this episode we are working on this tallboy MCM dresser that was slapped in white paint. It has some dust accumulated because it's been sitting around for a little while. The veneer was chipping in areas, the drawer had a chip in it, the bottom had some chips in the veneer, and just along the edges, I guess it was beat up around the corners somehow. This video, I'm excited to just show the process of how I remove paint on furniture and show you what I do. So let's get this thing started. This is keeping me alive. When removing paint from old furniture, it's always good to do a lead test. I like using the vinegar mix one. Then you mix it, rub it on for 30 seconds or so, and wait to see if it changes color. In this project, we have no lead and we're good to go. There are multiple ways to remove paint from furniture. The two most common ways I like to use is this carbide scraper, where you just scrape the paint away, and it does a pretty good job. This paint was pretty tough, not the toughest I've dealt with, but it was strong. I think the primer underneath the paint was what made this one tough. But you can also strip furniture with stripper, and you can also sand it down, but that's pretty risky when you're dealing with veneer, and this piece is also veneer, so I didn't want to risk going through it right away. You can also see how wobbly it is here. The legs were a little uneven, and I think this garage floor is just uneven anyways, so I'm just going to remove the legs, throw this thing back up, and throw a heavy tub of paint so this thing doesn't move at all. I just find it helps when there's no movement with a carbide scraper. So that was the carbide scraper method. Here is the paint stripper. You want to throw a nice amount of paint stripper on. I use an old chip brush just to make sure I get all the stripper all over the surface and just rub it around. And the thicker it is, the better, because once paint stripper dries up, that's when it basically stops working and it's tough to scrape off. And in hot weather like what I'm dealing with now, this stuff dried within minutes. It bubbled up quickly, but it also dried quickly. But at least I know it was bubbling up, so I could just apply more paint stripper, and that will solve the issue of it drying up. And you can see without letting it dry up, this comes off super nice. There are pros and cons to using paint stripper and a carbide scraper, but I find paint stripper, when it works, it's great. It's less physical labor, but it does add up because you got to buy new paint stripper pretty much every project, and sometimes you even need multiple cans for one project if just one somehow wasn't enough. So that's a negative. The carbide scraper, you basically just buy once, and that tool is going to last so long. So I'm using circa 1850 gel stripper. There's also a liquid stripper, which is great to use alongside the gel stripper. You use it after the gel, and then it basically cleans up the piece super nicely, and that's what I'm doing in this video. So I start with the gel, and then I use the liquid stripper, and then I eventually will get to mineral spirits. Here's the liquid stripper. I just throw it on, and I want to work with it right away. You don't want to let this stuff dry out. And I use steel wool and also a stainless steel wire brush. I find that helps get the paint off nicely as well. hit my bottle perfectly. What a shot. Now let's move on to the legs and these little pulls that were connected to the drawers. I ran out of 1850 gel stripper, so I'm using this Easy Strip eco-friendly stripper. This stuff works pretty good. I think it's called Max Strip in the US, but I like to throw it in a bag with the feet and these pulls, and it just prevents it from drying up. Using a combination of paint stripper and a carbide scraper, I think, is your best bet when refinishing furniture that's been painted. When you use a carbide scraper, you can still use stripper after it, and it usually requires much less. You just let it sit on for a few minutes, and then you can use a wire brush and help remove the paint that's stuck in the grain and the deep corners. This is what I do often. If this piece was solid wood, I could basically just sand the entire piece until the paint was gone in the grain, but this is veneer. It's a super thin sheet of wood, and if you sand too much, you could just go right through it, which often requires you to replace the veneer, and that's a lot of work. So I try to avoid that as much as possible because it costs extra money, and why not save what we already have? I also use these pick tools to pick paint out of areas that just won't come out. It's basically like a dental tool. Always check out the furniture from different angles because there's always paint hiding somewhere. Here is what the paint in the grain looks like on the top, because this is where we scraped and I haven't used stripper yet. You just want to throw the stripper on. I actually mixed some liquid with the gel just to get the remaining gel out, just to let it sit for a few minutes. Then I put liquid on, and then I started scrubbing with the wire brush. Then I used mineral spirits and the wire brush one more time on any areas where I could still see any paint in the grain. And here's just a little before and after of the paint in the grain that is gone. So I'm just using liquid stripper, scrubbing, and then mineral spirits and scrubbing just to get the remaining paint out of the grain, and some in the tight corners where it just wouldn't come out earlier. If you guys enjoy my videos and you want to see more, make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and the bell notifications so you don't miss out on my future videos. I also just started a school community called the Furniture Squad. It's a place for everything furniture refinishing related, whether you flip or you restore or refinish. It doesn't matter. It's a place to share your projects, share tips, and learn from one another. Right now it's completely free, and if you join today, you'll have free access for life. You'll find me in here, and also I'm inviting other creators from the online furniture space, and I hope to see you in there to help us grow this resourceful community together. Anyways, back to the video. After I use mineral spirits to clean everything up, it's time to start sanding. Now I'm using a 2-part epoxy for some of the damages on this piece. And I'm also doing some veneer patches in areas that allowed it. After fixing up those damages, it's time to sand the entire piece with 220 grit. Of course, there's always more paint to find along the way. Now it's time to get the stain ready. I'm going to mix some candlelight and antique walnut. I just don't have enough antique walnut left, and I have a ton of candlelight, so why not mix them together? I got the idea of mixing them from Dashner Design and Restoration. He's done it many times, and it looks really good. This is gel stain. I prefer using gel stain after restoring a painted piece just because I have to do a lot of work to clean out the grain and just any damages that are there. It's good to use gel stain. It hides some issues a lot better, I find. To apply it, I just use a lint-free rag, use a generous amount, and rub it all over, and then I wipe it off in a clean motion towards the grain. Because gel stain can dry pretty quick in the heat, that's why I like to go towards the grain so there's no weird lines going across the grain. And let's not forget to sand and stain the tiny pieces. One coat on the legs just looked terrible. It was kind of splotchy, so I did 2 coats of gel stain, and it was pretty thick and it looked really good. I also used a Mohawk grain marker in dark perfect brown on top of the areas that I used the epoxy filler, just to make the colors match up a bit nicer. Underneath one of the edges, there was a bit of paint that just wouldn't come out earlier, but I'm just going to cover it up with this marker and you can't even tell it's there. It's under eye level anyways. The drawer chip kind of looked like a wood knot. It looked really cool, so I was happy with how that turned out. Finally, it's time for water-based polyurethane. I'm using this to protect the piece. I start off with a foam applicator pad and just wipe it on in the direction of the grain. It was starting to dry as I was applying it, and you can see how like white and milky it looks here. It was kind of scaring me, so instead of continuing on with that, I just grabbed my sprayer and I'm going to spray the rest of this water-based poly on. On the pulls and the legs, I just use a spray lacquer. These little feet pieces were a bit rusty, so I just threw them in my drill, tightened it up, and just sanded them nice and shiny. Finally, this piece is done. Let's remove the tape, do some final cleaning on the drawers here, add the poles and legs, and we are done. Finally, let's take a look at this before one more time. This had white paint all over it. There were chips and the veneer on the drawers. The paint would peel off, and the chips on the bottom were rough throughout the entire edges. And here it is one more time, and here is what it looks like after. I really hope you guys enjoyed this furniture restoration and the entire process of how I remove paint from furniture. If you do have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to join the school community, the Furniture Squad. This is a place where we can chat, we can ask questions, and learn together about furniture refinishing. So I hope to see you there. And again, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.